So let's bring in CBS News weather producer David Parkinson. David, we're just hearing now that the entire city of Malibu is being evacuated. I mean, it's stunning how quickly these fires are spreading.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. One of the interesting things about these fires is when they grow as hot and as large as they do, you can actually start seeing them from space. So when we take a look at our infrared satellites, you can actually see, because it's a measure of the temperature, you can actually see the heat popping up through there. You see that little wisp there by Chico? That's the fire actually popping out through there. If you go into Southern California, you'll see a very similar thing. Ah, look at that. There's your fire right there just north of Agoura Hills.
And all that sort of gray stuff, is that smoke and clouds, or what's that?
No, that's well, yeah, that's cloud cover.
Okay,
so it's your infrared cloud deck, and then you can actually see it popping through that on the satellite. So that should give you an indication of just how much heat there is. The really big factor here, there are three. One, it's how dry it is. It is so incredibly dry, and it's going to stay that way through there. The second factor is the wind, and the wind speed and direction. So it's a combination of the winds coming offshore, so away from the state of California. That's a dry air. It dries out as it moves over the mountains there. So you can see where all these colors are here down by Los Angeles. That means you've got winds sustained of 20 miles an hour or more, all headed offshore. So that's a very vigorous wind. So when you combine that with the dry vegetation, plus you've got temperatures that are rather high, you combine all those three things together, and it's a really dangerous situation. Here's the one bit of good news that I have for you. Saturday, 4 p.m., you can see there's some more arrows headed onshore down here just in the California area. Sorry, in the Los Angeles area. That is going to happen for a one-day, maybe 6-hour time frame, but that is the daylight hours tomorrow. Those are your best days for the firefighters to get a handle on these things.
Will that be enough?
No, but it'll be a start, right? So you can start to put up some lines. I mean, the real big problem here is that when we talk about jumping the 101 and evacuating Malibu, all it takes is the winds running at the speed that they're running. It can carry an ember for several miles. So that's all it takes is a couple of them to just get across the highway, and it's off and down towards the coast. Here's the interesting thing. Take a look at, this is a map of the humidity here. So anywhere where you see a red, it's sort of this purplish color, that means you've got humidity in the teens or lower. And anywhere where you've got sort of these darker colors, that's where you're seeing higher humidity, so this sort of brownish color. The interesting thing that you'll know here is that any place where I've got this little hole on the map, the hole on the map means you've got a humidity of 1 to 5%. So the forecast humidity levels in Los Angeles this afternoon are between 1 and 5%, which means the vegetation is so tinder dry that it is just so incredibly dangerous. But there you see this little green making its way around Long Beach. That's the moisture coming back in tomorrow. So that's why we're hopeful for tomorrow. But we got to get through today with the winds again still in the 30, 40 mile an hour range, gusting potentially even higher.
All right, so relief from the windy conditions in the next couple of days?
Well, so the relief in Northern California begins this afternoon. By the time we get to 2, 3 in the afternoon California time, we are talking about winds that have backed off so dramatically that you are now in the single digits. You're in a good condition to help sort of not spread them as far as fast, but Southern California still is dealing with one of those really dangerous wind events. But they start to back off on Saturday. Unfortunately, Sunday the wind comes back, and it looks like Monday and Tuesday of next week is another offshore wind event. So really, it's not until the middle of next week after Saturday that there's a good day for firefighting. So it's really important to get a handle on it fast.
When's the rainy season?
So the water year begins in October traditionally. You start to see rain beginning to creep in there in October, November, just a little bit, and then it's December, January, and February. Here's an interesting note. It's an El Nino year, which is generally associated in California. People think El Nino, that means rain. Doesn't necessarily mean that. It's a question of whether it's a weak, a moderate, or a strong El Nino. A weak El Nino actually usually is a less rainy than normal year, at least in Northern California. And unfortunately, that's what it looks like we're on tap for right now. So it's a long, hot, sort of dry stretch. And in Southern California, the fire season pretty much goes year-round because they just don't get all that much rain. In Northern California, it usually ends like late December, but there are years when they don't get a lot of rain where it goes year-round there too, and that's really the big concern. We had that one wet year that saved us, but then last year was not all that wet, and if this one isn't again, we're in some bad situations.
Definitely. David, thank you so much.
Sure thing.